Welcome to another edition of the Business Builders Podcast, the podcast dedicated to the construction and trade industry. I'm thrilled to announce that today's guest is Stephen Merritt, the co-founder and director of Shell and Beyond, a construction company focusing on luxury basement work in London. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Nice to be here.
How did it all start?
It's an interesting story, I think. 20 years in banking. Obviously, then going into basements was the next move.
Natural progression.
When I left banking after the financial crisis, which I hasten to add wasn't caused by any of my lending. Went to join one of my clients who is a developer. And I'd only been with him for about 18 months when he decided to buy out of administration one of the leading basement companies. And I was kind of parachuted into there to run it. Did that for about 5 years. And with a colleague who was also at the basement company, we decided that we could do this ourselves and set up Shell and Beyond projects then.
Oh, wow. So was that, obviously because of your background, was that in a commercial, financial
Yeah,
role?
so I mean, a lot of my banking days were in development finance and construction finance. So there was kind of that interest. And had very good relationship with a number of my clients at the time, and loved going around to sites and seeing how things got started from ground up, or sometimes below ground. And yeah, there's always been that sort of interest that seeing how things are built and getting it done.
Yeah. So you're providing obviously additional space for your clients.
Yeah.
And this is in the sort of high-end resi market in London. Is that where you operate?
We started off doing a couple of projects in Chiswick, a few projects in Kensington, and it's that sort of area. Sometimes we've gone out as far as Kingston. We've done a remedial project last year in Esher, but most of it tends to be around the sort of Kensington, Chelsea, St John's Wood areas where the capital values kind of justify the expense of digging underground, which is not cheap.
No. I was going to say, when I heard obviously that you specialised in the basement work, was that a conscious decision to move into that, so a strategic move, but you kind of said you acquired a company.
I was working for a client who acquired a basement company.
Right, okay.
And then, having worked in that industry for 5 years, thought, yeah, I enjoy this, I like this. And a lot of the clients were quite interesting people to talk to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And really enjoyed that. So it was quite an obvious move then to sort of set up on our own and focus on that sort of what we've been doing for the last sort of 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, with the obviously I'm assuming here, because it's my construction company, we didn't touch basements.
Yeah.
It is a niche. I'm assuming that the planning is particularly more difficult to obtain. And this may sound a stupid question, but obviously you've got the tube running underneath. You've got do certain councils have certain restrictions? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely got more difficult, but single-story basements are fairly easy to get.
Right.
But you've got to have all the supporting documentation to go with it. So certain councils will ask for basement impact assessments, which some of the engineers that we use will put those together. So there'll be investigation to make sure there isn't a tube line running beneath the property. Groundwater is probably the big one. Making sure that if you dig a hole, it's not going to suddenly fill with water, and that you're planning for dealing with any groundwater that's there. And we've had some pretty bad ones in terms of groundwater, which there are ways of dealing with it.
Because there's drainage, isn't there? There's lots of other factors that you have to.
Yeah.
So is it, in terms of timeline, then, is planning that takes that much longer?
I'd always tell our clients to allow 6 months as a minimum. If you want to start next June, you need to be starting to get the ball rolling now to get planning by beginning of next year, to then get the party wall processing going and in place. Again, if you're telling your neighbours their foundations are going to be undermined by what you're planning to do, there's normally a slight look of horror on their faces, but if a competent contractor that's experienced in this field is involved and goes around and introduces themselves, we tend to find that helps the situation.
Yeah. So is it the insurance side of it? Is it considerably more
In,
onerous?
Insurances cost more than probably myself and my director pay ourselves.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's a big expense, but you can understand that because
Mm.
we're dealing with multi-million pound properties and
The risk
undermining
potentially.
foundations all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it tends to be mainly on the professional indemnity side, the design side, that the insurance companies are particularly worried because I think they've had so many claims in recent years on the waterproofing, where contractors haven't done their waterproofing properly, which is why I'd always say get a competent contractor that's approved by the different membrane companies to do the waterproofing, because it's, from a financial point of view, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. With regards to, say, on the financial side, because obviously, especially in construction, as we know,
Yeah.
cash flow is king
Yes.
for obvious
Yes.
reasons.
Yeah.
Do you have to manage the cash and manage the finances
Always.
in a different way to, because of there must be a hell of a lot of contingencies built in.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably less than you'd think,
Right.
considering what we're doing. I
Mm.
mean, there are obviously protections in our contracts that we don't know what we're going to be finding when we do dig under a house in terms of contamination, big lumps of concrete. I mean, I think the worst one we found was where a house in St John's Wood had bomb damage during the war, and they infilled the back of the house with
Oh,
concrete,
wow.
and I think it cost the client over £100,000 to get rid of that concrete.
Because London's clay based, isn't it? So you got that water.
You'd be
Yeah.
amazed at how the different types of ground we face. I mean, at the moment we're digging in a sand pit in South Kensington.
Yeah.
It's literally building sand we're taking out. So I suspect our waste carrier is cleaning it, and it's going back into bags, and it probably comes back on our site a few weeks
You
later.
pay for it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. From street to street it changes, but we tend to get borehole investigations as part of our due diligence,
Mm.
so that we've got an idea as to what we're facing. Because digging in sand versus digging in clay is very different.
Obviously, when I had my construction company, something as simple as, say, changing a kitchen,
Mm.
the residents would go crazy if they had a bit of dust on the side.
Yeah.
How do you manage to keep the customers happy when there's more than a little bit of dust potentially being spread around the house? Or
I mean, you tend to know the areas where the dust's going to come into the house, so
Mm.
it tends to be around like the skirtings and fireplaces. So we can, we try to tell our clients, you know, you know, because not all of our properties are lived in whilst we're doing the works. We might be sort of stripping the whole house back to shell,
yeah,
so it's not
but
a
that's
place to live.
preferable,
Yeah,
obviously. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
but when they're on site, how do you manage their expectations? Is there a um, you
There
know
is a
a shell
walk
and beyond
around.
way of dealing with this?
I think it's trying to be as open with the clients as possible. There is going to be noise, there is disruption. If we're breaking concrete, it is loud.
Mm.
Most of our clients will tend to be either the kids will be at school, the mum and dad will be out at work. So during the day, whilst we're making all this disruption, they're hopefully not in the house, or they make contingencies to not be in the house. And then by the time that we're finished, they're coming back for their evening meal, and hopefully the dust has settled.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. And we try to go around and sort of say, look, if you do see any dust coming up, give us a shout and we can come in and seal around the areas where it does come through.
Yeah, but the nature of that and the nature of the financials and the type of work and the industry as a general, there's been a few guests that we've had who have struggled with emotional problems and breakdowns and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Have you, during your time, encountered particular difficulties? Maybe it's a lack of work or people not paying. If you don't mind, is it you?
Yeah,
Have you
yeah. I mean,
struggled with that from time to time?
I think COVID was a big hit for us, because, as I was just saying, if our clients are out of the house during the day, That's all well and good, but during COVID, when
Unfortunately.
everybody is working from home more,
Yeah.
suddenly we're finding all the neighbours are in their houses, and we're making a racket next door. So we were having to adapt our working to try and be considerate to our
Mm.
neighbours, and generally that's worked quite well. I do remember one of the projects we were doing during the early days of COVID, where they were based in the Middle East. We were having all of our meetings on Zoom, and dealing with the neighbours who were in their houses next door, and changing our working hours to try and keep the noise down to a sort of minimum. But yes, challenging.
Yeah.
And from a financial point of view, it was challenging. We did get some government support during the time, which definitely helped. And then after COVID, as work started recovering, things have got back to how they should be. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel it seems to be a common problem in
Mm.
most industries, but definitely within the construction in the UK, the financial payment structure. Now, obviously, you work in residential. Have you done a comparison with, say, commercial, or have you had problems with payments
Yeah, I
that have
think.
caused problems?
Yeah, I mean, it's silly things like clients going away on holiday and not realizing that
They've
a
got to pay you.
valuation,
That's
which
probably why they
which
went.
you know, yeah, with our value, yeah. Probably not in understanding the importance of cash flow to small construction firms,
Yeah.
because I mean, some of the projects we're doing, the monthly application can be six figures, and so you try and plan accordingly and make sure everybody's aware of what's coming. And we have been lucky over the years that we've had some fantastic clients that they get an invoice and pay it almost straight away, which helps us make sure that all of our suppliers and what have you are paid on time as well.
With the planning generally in London,
Yeah.
obviously the height issues now, restrictions, are there more and more basement projects coming on the market? Is it a market that's growing, or is it something that is kind of steady and you've just got a reputation in it, so people come to you, or are you having to work hard to get the inquiries?
I think we have to work harder these days, whether it's to get the inquiries, to make the projects work. Everything feels a little bit harder now. Staff getting skilled labour on site is more difficult. I mean, in the early days, a lot of our guys were from Eastern Europe, so a number of those got settled status and are still here,
Mm.
and have been with us for almost 10 years. But some of them have gone back to Eastern Europe, and we've tried the sponsorship visa route, but that is cumbersome, and quite involved. So that's a big issue for the industry, I think, generally.
Yeah, see, there's
Yeah,
trades. We
yeah,
again, a few other guests have mentioned the
yeah,
difficulties of trying to get skilled
yeah.
labour.
And in terms of the basement market, I don't. I think the sort of golden era for basements was in the sort of early 2010s. You drive around some streets and find five or six basement
Yeah,
projects going on at the same time, whereas you drive down those same streets now and you might see one. That could be because all of the basements have been dug, but I
yeah,
don't think so. So I think there's less of a market for basements, but financially, I think it still makes sense for the homeowners. Um, it's the cheapest way of getting extra space rather than sort of moving and stamp
especially in that
duty.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you can
indeed.
imagine the stamp duty if you're buying a house for
Mm.
£5 or £6 million. Um, you can probably get a good chunk of basement for that.
On average, then, with the basement area, how much extra space are you giving the homeowners, would you say?
Our projects have ranged from about 350 square feet up to 5,000 square feet. And it's probably averaging around the sort of 900 to 1,000 square feet. So, you think that, I mean, that's a three-bedroom flat,
Yeah.
that we're sort of adding below an existing house.
Do you s- uh, subcontract everything out into the specialist trades, or do you have any in-house?
We've got our own team of structural guys that deal with the underpinning, and forming the structural box, and then we do the waterproofing in house, and then when we get on to the sort of fit out and finishes, we've got a small fit out team, and we then work with regular subcontractors, electricians, plumbers, plasterers, who we've worked with for many years now, and
Yeah.
they still talk to us. So
Yeah, you're obviously paying them then.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
With regards to, say you from the design to the planning to the
yeah,
construction to the fit out,
yeah.
obviously you give like a seamless service.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to be flexible in we can do everything, or we can just do parts of the process.
From 2015 till now, over that period,
Yeah.
that 10-year period, are you experiencing more? What difficulties? How's the industry changed for you? Are you encountering problems now that you didn't back then, or are the problems that the industry is pretty much the same?
I think they're similar. I mean, I feel like most days I'm a logistics man trying to work out how we can
Yeah.
get materials in and out of a street where it's only 2.3 metres wide. So a skip lorry is 2.7 metres wide. A grab lorry is probably that and a little bit more. The concrete wagons are all that size. So, we're site batching concrete, cube
Right.
testing. So we're making sure we get the concrete strength we need. So it's just trying to adapt to different projects. I think we've probably made a name for ourselves in terms of doing these sort of difficult access jobs. So quite a few of these muse properties where,
Yeah, I can imagine those particularly
cart
difficult.
and horse was the preferred method of getting things in and out of the property.
So you got a couple, you got a stable. So.
Yeah, that's right.
With the planning in particular, there's so much press now about planning and how long it takes and particular issues around planning.
Yeah.
Has that changed? Has that become more difficult to obtain?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about using an architect or planning advisor that has the experience in dealing with particular boroughs in London. Kensington and Chelsea for a while was seen as quite difficult, but settled down so that as long as you're providing your traffic management plan, impact assessment, and so on, they would sign it off. Because at the end of the day, most basements you're not actually going to see. You might see a grill at the front of the house where the light well is, but apart from that, there's no obvious sign that there is a basement underneath the house.
Yeah.
It tends to be more if they're extending at the back. So a lot of the architects we work with will probably split the applications, deal with the basement separately, and anything that can be seen from ground and above is dealt with on a separate application.
We've gone 10 years.
Yeah,
5 years time.
yeah.
We've gone from the heights to the basements. Do you see the industry going in any other particular areas or directions?
I don't think so. I think there's still enough of a market for basements in London. We tend to get a few more repeat clients. We like working with certain engineers and architects that we have done over the years many times. We like to build relationships, whether it's with the design teams that we work with, the guys we've got on site, the suppliers, the subcontractors. It is a team-led effort.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky to have a very supportive builders merchants that we use. And yeah, that's a good story to tell as well. So,
In what way is
well, a lot of the guys we deal with, like the builders merchants we use, the guy started off with a shop opposite a Travis Perkins. He had a client that said, "Oh, I wish I could get delivery of a sheet of ply today." So the guy thought, went over, bought a sheet of ply and took it round in his van to the client. And now I think they're turning over £500 million a year.
good grief?
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's working with people like that get given a problem and think of how to work around the issue. Because I know, like the particular job that we're working on at the moment in South Kensington, getting things in and out of the site with a road width restriction was very difficult. So we worked with both our waste carrier and builders merchants to find a way of getting things in and out in a timely fashion. And that's working quite well.
Your background is finance.
Yeah.
A lot of people I work with, especially some of the smaller guys and anybody that may be listening to this, would you mind just running through how you kind of control the finances on the job and some of the things. Obviously, we used to do CVRs and things like that. But coming from you, I just thought it'd be if you could give some detail into how you do that. So anybody that may be listening, it's been emphasised so much that people need to control the finances, especially in UK construction.
Yes.
I'd just like to hear it from you, how you go about that.
I've got a cash flow for the business. So every invoice that I get in, I know what I've got to spend at the end of the month for suppliers and materials. So that goes onto the cash flow. And I'm forecasting what I think is coming in from our clients on the fortnightly or monthly valuations. And then trying to just
So to interrupt,
stress it.
is that based on the life of the job or the life? So you have that, but then you factor it into the company one.
So I've got an annual cash flow for the business, and then I've got separate cash flows for projects.
Yeah.
And that really does help because I know I can see when I've got upcoming issues or shortfalls. If a client doesn't pay me when I think they're going to pay me, I try to sensitize the cash flow so that I'm not saying if the valuation is due on the 14th, I'm showing it coming in on the 14th. I'm showing it coming in on the 28th.
Yeah, it's timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the difference between profit and loss and cash flow, isn't it?
Yes.
When you raise an invoice that's in that month, but you may not get paid to the following month.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't actually.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but they don't understand the concept.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, in my 20 years in banking, that didn't teach anything about running a business.
Yeah.
It's only when you actually start running a business you think, oh, is that what I've got to do? And you realise when you look at the bank balance that you need to pay attention to it, which is why it's even more important to make sure that you're invoicing regularly.
Do you take deposits up front, or because you can in residential?
We do sometimes. Yeah. I think some clients are. We did a project a few years ago up in Belsize Park where client went out to tender. We were number 2, didn't get the job, appointed the contractor. Within 3 weeks of appointing him, the contractor had gone bust after taking 10% deposit. We were then asked by the client all the questions that perhaps they should have asked beforehand, like, are you up to date with VAT and tax? Can I see some references from your suppliers? And so on, which we provided, and we got awarded the project second time round. That turned out to be a lovely space.
Yeah, because from my memory, when we used to do it, we used to obviously factor in work in progress, and we done monthly. I think yours is an average job is for you 6 months to get planning, but then you're on site. Because that has to be factored in as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
into
it
your
does.
Costs.
Yeah. So I mean, current project we're working on in South Kensington started in May. The contract completion for the structural phase is June next year.
Wow.
Because we're not only digging a basement, we've lowered the existing lower ground floor to improve the ceiling height, and we're gradually swapping each floor as we go up and putting a new roof on.
To increase the ceiling height throughout the house?
Yes. Yeah.
It sounds great, actually. It sounds very complex, but it sounds
and it's
very interesting.
With the temporary works involved, because you're trying to make sure the building is going to stay up whilst you're effectively taking everything out from underneath it. That's really interesting and a little bit scary sometimes.
Do you only take one project on at a time?
No, I mean in the early days we were doing 2 or 3 structural projects and 1 fit out refurbishment. But I think because we've been doing slightly bigger projects recently, we've been kind of focusing on one main project and doing a few little things around the side. So we've just finished 3 bathrooms in a property in Notting Hill.
All right. Okay.
But because it was for the neighbour of somebody whose basement we refitted, who wanted some help. So that's how we tend to work. So
yeah, that's good. It's been a issue even when I had my construction company that you have 2 or 3, 4 or 5 jobs on at a time, and if you're working with one, say contract administrator, sometimes they'll ask you to run some onto another job, and and then all of a sudden you've got these finances half here, half there, and that's where people have problems if they're not managing the finances properly, and they're getting the carrot is constantly taking them in deeper.
Yes,
and that has happened with a couple of guests as well.
Yeah,
what's your thoughts on that?
we've always tried to sort of stick to doing 3, 4 jobs maximum any one time.
Right.
We don't want to be making loads of money from a dozen jobs, but actually probably not making any money because your hair's falling out and the stress levels go out the window. We'd rather do 3 or 4 jobs, do them well, keep the clients happy, and wait for the next project to come along.
Yeah, because if you can focus on that,
Yeah.
it's all about profitability. Too many people chase the turnover.
Yeah.
Dave from Carmel Group, who was on the last interview,
Yeah.
he was talking about, I think he turned over 45 million, but he was saying he made more money at 28 million, actually made more profit.
Yeah.
So he would be quite happy to go back
Yeah.
and then try to, just make sure that the focus is on profit rather than turnover.
Yeah, I mean, during just after COVID, I mean, I think our turnover dropped below £1 million. Last year it was about 1.6, and the year before 2.5, because of the projects that we're working on.
Yeah.
We did one 5 or 6 years ago next door, but one to Lambeth Palace. Massive project, 5,000 square feet. Half the garden at the back, and concrete trucks every day, and it was a good project for us. But in some respects, that was probably an easier project than one of the smallest projects we did, where we were trying to squeeze things
width
in and
restrictions.
out.
Yeah, I was going to say around that area you got a bit more space.
Yeah.
But some of the areas you get into are very, it's lovely working for these, beautiful areas, beautiful homes.
Yeah.
And I used to take a lot of pride in when you see the finished product. How about yourself? Do you?
I never get bored of. I probably get more excited at the concrete shell than the actual finished product.
Than the average person.
Yeah. When you start putting on this cavity membrane system we use for waterproofing, so it's like this sort of plastic dimpled material where the water runs behind and into a tank. So you're allowing water to come into the structure, but it gets drained into a sump chamber and then gets pumped out. So rather than fighting the water, you're managing it and controlling its exit from the building.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I'm saying we done some waterproofing, not at that scale by any stretch of imagination, at the Garrett Club, and we had to have this orange membrane. I can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah.
Senior moment.
Yeah.
But it's again, water, just managing water, and that sounds ridiculous, but it can cause so many problems.
Well, near to Lambeth Palace, obviously you're very close to the Thames.
Yeah.
And at one point we had 10 pumps going all day long to keep the water table down until we'd cast the concrete, which Cemex were brilliant at helping us with. I think we ended up using some concrete that they designed for the North Sea oil rigs.
Wow.
So for plugging the basement swimming pool there. So that was interesting. Yeah.
In terms of the work, obviously you've mentioned the size of work you do and the nature of it and creating that extra living space. Are there plans to perhaps go into multi-car parks, underground, TV rooms, swimming pools? Are you looking to, say, go down 2 or 3 stories and sort of...
You can't. Planning has changed so that multi-story basement is more difficult. I mean, certainly in the London boroughs, it's almost impossible now. I think because some people were going down 3 or 4 stories, and these projects were going on for 3 or 4 years, and understandably upsetting neighbours with the constant trucks going past. We very much led by clients. If the architects that we've worked with came to us and said, there's this big project where he wants to store his collection of cars, we'd happily look at it. But we tend to be more central where it is extra living space, just making kind of almost resolving the historic issues with the buildings where they're top heavy in terms of lots of bedrooms and then one floor for a living room and a kitchen, and we're putting in extra living space to allow a family to enjoy
just a better balance.
Yes. Speaking as a father sometimes it's good to have separate space for your kids to
Yeah,
play
them
there.
rooms are in lead, I
Yes.
think. All contained.
Yeah.
With regards to the 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 work that you're doing now, the niche that you're involved now,
Yeah.
knowing what you do now, is this a market that you would have chosen to go into, or would you perhaps, because you mentioned that you do the refurb as well? I know you get a kick from seeing the additional space, but with the way that the industry is going, is it something that you still say, yeah, no, this is?
Yeah,
And if
definitely.
anybody's listening, would you recommend, if somebody's listening to this without your background and your skill set, what would you say to them if they wanted to get into this particular sector?
Interesting question. It is an interesting sector. I think you need to have your eyes wide open, and you need to have some people around you that have got the skill set. I mean, we work with some great engineers, both permanent design and temporary works design, and having good, reliable guys on site is essential. I mean, Neil, my business partner, and myself, we're on our sites every day. So we're going through things, we're going through the works that need to be done with our guys, making sure that we're safe, doing things properly, achieving the quality that we want, so that when we do finish the structural phase, you've got a waterproof box there. You don't have to worry about being flooded by a sewer popping in the street.
Are there, because of the nature of the potential risks, is our retentions considerably longer? Or
No, I think because on average a basement dig is 6 to 12 months, but then the fit out's going to be another 6 to 12 months. You've got that sort of period whilst we're on site where the waterproofing is being tested.
I see. Okay.
So most of our defects and retention periods are standard, either 6 or 12 months.
You mentioned earlier that obviously from the banking perspective, they didn't actually give you the business insights.
Yeah.
What have you learned about business on your journey?
I suppose I'm now a jack of all trades, whether it's cleaning toilets on site, driving the delivery vehicle.
Getting stuck in gaps.
Yeah, it's it's trying to sort of see everything that goes on in the business to allow you to kind of plan for it. So, I try and look at each project that we do. Firstly, how the neighbours are going to be, and try and, if I had somebody building next to my house, step into their shoes and try and be respectful of what is going on next door.
Sure.
And be considerate. And from the business stance, it's trying to set out clearly with the client and their team what's in the contract in terms of monthly applications, valuations. And then on the site side, it's making sure that there's a good process for getting the materials we want on site when we need them, and trying as best possible to think ahead, and having that sort of, I suppose now that we've got all this experience, we know the sort of materials that we need, and we've got the suppliers, the niche suppliers we need for certain specialist products, be it on the waterproofing side or reinforcement, steels, etc.
Is your business partner a construction man?
Yes.
Right, so you got the
Thank
balance
God.
there.
So yeah, Neil's very much the technical side, whereas I tend to be more the sort of business and logistics. Yeah, I mean, he did his training with Holloway White Alum, that sort of calibre, apprenticeships and what have you. So he's been in the industry. His dad ran a joinery company, so I think he was on building sites from 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, it's a great balance. It's the same
Yeah.
when I had my company at Sutherland's. Colin was a surveyor. I was more commercial like yourself. And I think sometimes you need that balance. If you've got people who are doing exactly the same backgrounds, it can get a little bit
Yes.
testy, and you don't have the wider, broader
Yeah.
creativity. In terms of, you touched upon it a couple of times about processes. In terms of creating a way that you look at your business and do your business, and if in time you want to come away from that business and let the business and just perhaps pop in and out, and you have a succession management plan, say, in place. Do you have you introduced a number of systems and processes that the company works to, or is something that may be something down the road?
I think at our previous company, I took the company through the ISO 9001,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and that taught me a lot in terms of the sort of processes you need to have in place. So we've got a few of those systems in place. I think we're very good on our IT side now in terms of the way that we store our data, so that if my PC blows up, I can easily recover it. And it's good being able to take my laptop to site and being able to access important information easily, so that you can operate from anywhere. And hopefully when I go on holiday occasionally, you can sort of relax and know that, in an emergency, you could get to the data quite easily to help out if the guys have got questions on site, if Neil's not around. Or
Yeah, it's because again, it's as you're talking, obviously I'm listening, and I'm hearing that yes, the work, you've got all these specialist trades to help you with the physical construction of it,
yeah,
but as you're constantly jumping back in and out of, you've got to have this business infrastructure, the finance,
yes,
the operations, the
yes,
systems, the processes. Otherwise, the business will flounder.
yeah. And I probably haven't focused on it enough. Working with good, reliable suppliers, subcontractors, that they are like partners to us. I know that, and I mean, this is a crazy thing. I've got a builders merchants, and sorry to keep going on about how great they are, but I know they've told me, Stephen, if you were short, you could ring us up at 4:30 on today. Say I've got a problem, I need some materials, and they'd have it to me at 9 o'clock the next morning. And I know that I could probably do that with the electrician we use, Rob and his team, who are fantastic. That if I said, guys, I've got a problem, can you help me? That because we've got that sort of relationship, that they'd be there the next day to help us out.
So it's establishing a good network,
Yeah.
supply network. Do you have a vetting policy for the subcontractors and the trades that you use, or is it kind of a suck it and see kind of?
Generally, we only use guys that we've worked with before or have been introduced to us by somebody who we trust and respect.
Yeah.
And that's worked really well over the years. Everyone has the odd one that doesn't work out, but generally speaking, all the guys that we work with now are pretty regular.
Do you do references on some of these trades? Do you get references before you use them on some of the larger scale stuff that you may say on the engineering or larger projects?
Not generally, because I think everybody that we've worked with has come as a known quantity.
Right.
So which is a great position to be in, that you can that they're being introduced to you by somebody who you respect and trust their opinion. So I like to think that we've got the best plasterers in London, the best tiler in London, best electricians in London, the best plumber, and that's come from years of a
Building
little
that
bit
relationship,
of pain.
and and obviously you look after them or they wouldn't look after you. So
Yeah,
it's a reciprocal arrangement.
yeah. We treat them how we want to be treated ourselves. So
So on this business journey
yes,
that you've had,
yeah,
particularly in the last 10 years, if anybody is listening and you're going to give them 3 bits of business advice, I'm putting you on the spot here. What, from the lessons that you've learned, what would you pass on to those people?
running your own business is stressful, but it's a different sort of stress, because at the end of the day that everything that you're doing is for your benefit, and that you're hopefully taking a team on the journey with you. So try and manage the stress. Having somebody with you along the way who's supportive is very helpful. Big thanks to my wife at this point and my 2 sons, because there are points where it does get stressful, but it does help to have.
Is that stress
support.
as well? Is that stress centered around finance? Is that the issue that tends to create most of the stress in construction?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably is 70%. The other 30% probably is the occasional issue with timescales, whether occasionally you've been let down by somebody for a good reason, or the client decides that the steel column that you've put in place 2 months ago needs to be moved to allow for a cupboard to go in. It does happen.
Yeah,
You've got
yeah.
the side of the house, the back of the house on temporary supports, and you're being asked to move a steel column. Is interesting times. So sorry, yeah. Manage the stress, focus on the cash flow, and make sure that you've got plenty of leads and business coming in.
And how in terms of that, in terms of marketing and sales, how do you do that? Do you do that by personal networking events, or do you employ a company to support you on that?
No, it's very organic. It's very word of mouth, working with a lot of architects over and over again, pushing professional team that we work with. Oh, I saw your name on a drawing the other day. Can you introduce me to the
Yeah,
architect? Because if you don't ask,
you
and
don't
yeah,
get.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
If when did you first get into say business? When you say left banking, what age were you then roughly?
um, what was I? 37.
37.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would the Stephen Merritt of today, what advice would he give the 36, 37-year-old Stephen Merritt
Why have you
of the
taken so
past?
long to do it?
Get out of banking.
Well, no, I mean, I enjoyed my time in banking, but I think I needed to try something
Mm.
else. Worked for a client for 5, 6 years, and enjoyed that. But again, felt like I wanted to be more in control of my destiny. So
Would
unfortunately, I've
would
got
the
nobody else to
older
blame now but myself.
would the older Stephen give the younger Stephen advice that would make him look at the way he's done his business? Would you have done it differently?
I think with hindsight, I probably would have changed a few things along the way, but probably not as much as you'd think. I'm
Mm.
not saying I'm right all the time by any stretch, but I think things have worked well in terms of when we've received certain tenders and inquiries. It always seems to have worked out quite well. You know,
Mm.
you make your own luck. Um, we worked on a project in Holland Park. Um, Neighbours from across the road came over and, oh, can we have a look round? And 6 months later, we were working on their house. And that was when lockdown hit.
Right.
So we were fortunate to have that lined up, and that kept us going through the sort of just after the first lockdown period. And big thanks to one of the engineers we worked with, because our first two projects came off the back of them. And we've worked with them most years since. So it's having good, reliable people around you that will occasionally say, "Oh, Stephen, you ought to give so and so a ring. They're looking for a decent contractor."
One of the questions we tend to ask is, were there any high points and low points within your journey?
Yeah.
And would you like to discuss that?
Okay.
That sort of thing. Have you got anything that?
I think on the high points for the business, it's always when a job goes really well, and finishes within timescale. So financially, it gives a better cushion to the company. Because on the flip side, the low side was definitely probably post-COVID, when you're thinking, how are we going to operate when we're so restricted? I mean, we actually shut for 5 weeks during the first lockdown, but we're then seeing on the news all these people jumping on the underground and going to various construction sites in London. Until one of our clients said, "I'm watching probably the same news programs you are. When are you thinking of going back?"
Do you have money put aside to cope with those eventualities?
Yes, we
Right.
were fortunate. I mean, we did borrow a small amount of money from one of the COVID impact
Mm.
facilities that our bank was offering, which definitely helped for the following sort of 12, 18 months. So yeah, it's just trying to be aware of anything like that that's out there to help you as a business. There's not that many of them.
No, but there are. I think if you do your research in terms of just funding, there's a lot of grants and there's a
Yeah, I
lot
think
of
probably particularly for the
government
startups,
initiatives. Yeah.
because I think people do need to be encouraged to set up a business because it can be daunting, and I think if there's people like yourselves that can coach people to take the plunge and set up a business, but I suppose it's making sure you've got that sort of first contract waiting.
You need the work to obviously
Yeah,
get the wheels moving,
yeah,
but from my experience, really, you are always in any business you're in, you're going to have ups and downs.
yes,
But if you do structure the business properly, if you have some kind of plan that you work to, and you cover what I call the six main areas, then you can actually minimise that stress, minimise that risk.
yeah,
It will still be there, but the implications won't be as devastating as perhaps they could be
completely. Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah. We've always tried to focus on keeping our overheads down. So I'm driving a little electric car around, which considerate constructors love.
Yeah.
So we've earned a few extra brownie points there. And I should actually big shout out to the Considerate Constructors scheme because over the years they've really guided us and given us some really good advice. Which I think makes us probably much more considerate as an employer and a sort of company working next door to.
Yeah, but that accreditation also is good for your marketing. It's good for your reputation.
Yes.
And obviously winning what you mentioned the Reba 22. What specifically was that? A specific project?
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't score the efforts of the architect on that project, Creative Mass. It was their design that won the award, and we were just the contractor who had to find a way of
To deliver
yeah,
the project.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, that was the small 350 square foot basement. And it was like a triangular shaped Muse house and it was off of the Muse, so access was even more difficult. We had to install these lovely Dinnerson flooring that came in sort of like 5-6 metre long boards. And we had to put them in a self-storage unit because we couldn't actually get them all onto site at the same time. Yeah, I mean, if anybody is looking to start a basement company, I've probably mentioned the importance of having good people around you. And the guys on site are the essential ingredient. I don't want to undersell the engineer's involvement, but you'll get a design from an engineer for where all the steel beams are going. You'll get a design from the temporary works engineer saying this is where you need to prop to make sure the house is stable whilst you're undermining the foundations. But it's the guys on site who are doing and making sure that's all. It's difficult for us to be on site 24 hours a day watching everything, but having good guys. A lot of the guys that we've got on site have been with us for almost 10 years now. So there's that, again, that they know how we want to operate.
It's also an indication of how you treat your people. From when I had mine, I know there were things like, we got an external health and safety company on retainer.
Yeah.
Things like that it's hard to price into the job. If you price into a job, you're probably going to lose the job.
Yeah.
But it's having that external support to make the business and make the sites run safely, efficiently and stuff like this. Because as I kind of alluded to earlier, the works get done by good people, but if you don't have the business infrastructure around it, you can start to lose money, hemorrhage problems, and programs can be unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned health and safety. I mean, just having a tidy site is so important because seeing sort of cables lying around here, that is a real hazard on site when people are walking around and moving, bags of cement. That's a real liability.
Yeah. Also, it gives an indication. I had a landscape gardener once as a client. When I went to see his sites were messy, very exceptionally good at the work.
Yeah.
About 200 metres down the road, there was another guy. Obviously, the work wasn't the same, but he was so tidy on site. And I was trying to explain to this guy that he will get repeat work.
Yeah.
Forget the nature.
Yeah.
That comes afterwards.
Yeah.
You need to organise your sites in a presentable way for health and safety, but also the perception outside.
I mean, we spend a bit more money on putting like metal hoarding boards on top of our ply hoarding.
Oh, right. Okay.
With like nice pictures,
Yeah.
so that it looks
We used
nice
to
and
have a
tidy.
design on our hoardings, but
Yeah,
not metal. Yeah.
yeah. So like we've got iron railings on our design, and then it's got a list of all the project team, so that people can see that there is an architect, there is an engineer, there is a supplier, a quantity surveyor involved in the project.
But all of those things are really important, because I think a lot of people who start small businesses don't realise perception is so important. And if you are putting contact details or pictures of people, it shows you're human beings. It shows that there's nothing to hide as such. And it goes a long way, but too many people just, well, I got the job, I'm doing the job's good. But it's not, it's very short-sighted. You won't get the repeat business on the back of that.
I mean, one of the other important things I tend to do, which isn't priced into the job, is I'll loiter outside our sites most days for half an hour to an hour, just to try and bump into the neighbours and say hello.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I was chatting to one neighbour yesterday. He was telling me about the crab apple gin that he makes, so I might be getting a bottle there, hopefully. But just keeping that relationship going. Trying to understand that. He was telling me that his car's getting dirty, so I'm going to organise that we'll clean his car once a month. Not by us, I hasten to add. I'll get somebody else that is good at washing cars to do it. But little things like that do go a real long way.
Yeah. As you said earlier, you put yourself in the neighbour's seat. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think on that note, I think we can probably wrap it up there. But obviously, I really appreciate it. It's been very interesting. I've never had an interview really with anybody that's done basement work before, so I've learned a lot myself.
Yeah.
And I just would like to thank you for coming along today and
my pleasure.
taking the time and
spending a bit of time talking about where we've been and what we're doing.
Indeed. Yeah.
And if anybody's interested, our SAB Projects Instagram page is a good source of
I was just about to say, if anybody wants to get hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, our Instagram page is a good place to sort of start. It's got all our sort of contact information on there, or our website, sabprojects.co.uk.
Okay, and we can put that underneath our links here.
Yeah. I think just as a finish, the name Shell and Beyond Projects came about because I think at the time my children were watching the Buzz Lightyear to Infinity and Beyond.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
that's where it came from.
Stuck.
Okay. Oh, great.
Good.
Well, it definitely describes what you do, so it's a perfect name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.